Good evening, everyone. System Chalk here with the 181st episode of Book of Hours, our first run through YouTube, playing as the artist. Now, just a small technical note here. I'm sure my voice is coming in a little bit clear. I don't know if this is a Windows Update thing or something else, but I do tend to notice that my microphone level will drop on occasion. And it seems to be related to certain types of software which just reach into the back of Windows sound settings and decrease them. But I did notice that I had to turn it up from the previous episode. I do apologize for that, but I don't really have a way of fixing that until after I find it. So I hope that this is a little bit more comfortable for everybody. Now, we do still need to cross over into the spring, so we'll do that now. But just as a reminder, we're going to be reading one of these two books tomorrow for sure, and I suspect I'm going to try and sort out. Well, we'll see what the languages give us. Actually, let's not predict too much. Okay, so it is proper spring. Current affairs: what's happening in the world beyond Brandkrug? What visitors will the season bring? And the yearly stipend. The yearly stipend from St. Ronwin's has arrived, along with the rather usual sniffy reminder that I should spend it wisely. So we are going to talk with Mrs. Kill. I also seem to recall, now we may actually wind up taking up the whole day doing this, but I'm actually going to go for the knock. Yeah, we're going to try and clear out the pumps, or clear out the lower levels today. Alright, just going to do a quick review of my possible fuels. So, interesting. I think we'll take the turpentine in this case. Or turpentine, I guess. All right, these machines are of different and newer manufacture than the ones above. They include something like a generator too, but they're in even worse condition. I'll need to provide suitable materials and fuel, and I'll need scholar level forge to jury rig them. So with okay, nope, it's. So I'm wondering why it says knock here. It's not a major hardship to switch it around, but the machine roars to life, sparks flicker. This will take a while. Yeah, so this may actually take the whole day, and I'll be down the forge, but we've got what we need. Now we don't actually have any options in terms of opening up any further rooms until we work those pumps. But again, I don't really have that much to do other than read these texts as well. And I'm just trying to think, does it really make sense for me to... I will wait for the weather. But maybe while we do that, trying to think if I have a use for the shaft at the moment. I'll use the whist. Help with letters. I could offer help with correspondence and arithmetic. There's no school in Brandkrug, and not everyone here knows their letters. Okay, another gale. Here's the iron spintria and another 1 pound note. And I think, given that we have the gale, the best bet here is to go for Nin's cages. So I believe, and I need to just double check this on my... there's a reason why I made sure I charged my notes. So I had some notes for Grail and Scale, but I don't think I'm going to need those. But I think I did... I think I did make the mistake of where are we? Yeah, I did make the mistake of not really thinking about how I would handle Nin's cages. So first of all, I don't think we've got... yeah, Ericapan doesn't help us here. So with Nin's cages, we've got 16, so 2 from the core. For heart, I think it's either quenchings and quellings or drums and dances. Yeah, both of those. So 7 from skill. So that's 9. Now, without an ink, we could bring... four or 5. Okay. So an ink would be the best option here. But the thing is, I actually think we're still short. If you can just give me a quick second here. So I realize the dead silence is not the most compelling material to work with, but I thought I had some notes in terms of how I was going to do Nin's cages here. I do believe the... I do believe the Newman had a role to play in it. I think... I'm trying to remember if it was the turquoise hand or the sky in the scar. I wish I remembered this. Sky in the Scar, I think, had to do with... that was the one with the Carapace cross. That's a pretty memorable image. That's why I'm thinking of the heart. But I also seem to remember this one as well. I think this one had the weave. Oh yeah, no, because of the Kilisimi, right. Yeah, actually the Kilisimi might be a slightly better argument there. Okay. So now that I've hopefully navigated my ignorance, so let's say that I've got 2 core, 7 for a skill, so that's 9. Then we add 5 for my. I had 5 for my Newman, but I still come up short. I'm down 1 unless I can find sort of a second heart to employ. I can't really see myself using the flushed Mommet in this case. That's a little too much. I think it's a little too much for one thing. But you know what? We have... This is actually the one case where we have more than we really know what to do with. So sorry for kind of spending a little too long thinking about that. But I think I know what I'm going to do here. So we'll read the couplet follows. So that's going to take us a minute. I've already mastered this, but I could reread it and perhaps recall a memory. The other thing that I'm going to want to do is if I am reading the Nin's cages, that's going to mean quenchings and quellings. So what I want to do here is put together my list of heart and winter material. So before I go too far on that, we'll do the usual trick. So heart, winter. So impulse doesn't help. Satisfaction does. Revelation won't. I'll skip over these. Bittersweet certainty does help. because of the winter. Foresight doesn't. Contradictions doesn't. Hindsight, I believe, does. Again, the winter helping us out here. Intuition doesn't. Gossip is Grail and Rose, so no. Fear, Edge, and Scale. Regrets does. Storm definitely. And then Storm Weather is different. Stolen Secrets doesn't help. Pattern, Forge, and Knock, so no. Solace is Like a Storm. Earth Sign doesn't. Pattern we already covered here. Cheerful Ditty does help. Confounding Parables, right, doesn't work for Intuition, so it won't work for Confounding Parable unless the sky is relevant. Finally, Salt does have winter in it, so that helps. I think we already said regret. Wait a minute. Was I going to move these back over? Savage Hymn's got the Scale, Beguiling Melodies got the Grail. Yep, so we are good there. And then technically for the 10th position, there's also the Newman. We're pretty good. So, Satisfaction, Hindsight, Regret, Storm, Solace are all potentially things we get from Mrs. Kill. So what I want to do here is grab the Bittersweet Certainty, the Cheerful Ditty, the Salt, and then the Newman again. Okay, that's Cheerful Ditty. Salt will... I'm trying to remember the last Salt book that I read. So, C does not regret. We'll skip over the Newman, just because I have to handle that, so we will go for a Bittersweet Certainty, and I'll probably generate the Storm while I'm at it. I probably want to be a little careful that I'm not overcommitting, just because some of these... Actually, you know what? I'll hold off on the Storm, just simply because I'm not 100% sure where I'm going to be later on in the day, so we can go for Glimmerings. And then we'll see how the day plays out before I commit anything else. Mrs. Killstein's ready to help. You always cheer me up, she says morosely. Mrs. Kill has seen more of the world than she usually lets on. Conversations with her yield the occasional surprise. And again, we're not really using any assistance until we, until we get to these lower levels. I've carried a memory like a flambeau safe through the mazes of night. So we hang on to this one because of its heart aspect. Now, it may be that Mrs. Kill winds up giving us the satisfaction card before we can use it anyway, but it's our best shot right now. There 'tis in Camino Tizzer. Mrs. Kill, as every local gossip knows, came from France to marry Mr. Kill, but there's scant trace of the continent in her accent now. So this one isn't directly helpful. And if this winds up being a little bit more of a sleepy day, so be it. I think I can live with without emptying every single item that we need from quenchings and quellings. But I think we should do our best with what we've got. So Tuppence will buy me a hearty meal and a quiet place where I can rest and gather my thoughts. It is spring, and this landlady has served me a slice of her stargazy pie with the pilchard heads poking cheekily through the hot crust. And we'll get some books in a minute. Also, Zachary Wakefield has arrived on the matter of the affair of the messenger's casket. Marksman, detective, renegade. He has always been a quiet man, but since he left the Suppression Bureau, he has grown even quieter and terribly still, except for his fingers and for his eyes, always in restless motion. So he knows Frisian, Greek, Latin, and Kilisimi. Nothing directly useful to us, but I'm still happy to get the Spintria. Okay, the Coprolethemphalos. What is this? A tufted fossil of silken fiber, big as a child. Something consumed, something was consumed. If we interpret its interweavings, we might understand. The meaning of this object isn't something that one reads, but rather something that one follows, until at last one has passed 3 times around it, and one finds the meaning waiting at one's shoulder. So, weaving the world, the histories they say are braided like hair or tangled like roots. What is the shape of that knot? Funny you should ask. So this does have the heart. Instruments of the Heart. Sister Isabel, then precentress of the Abbey Church of St. Brendan's, engages in dialogues with a heartlong of a kind called Duendrazon that has taken partial possession of her body. The Duendrazon, like all its kind, usually dwells in the Mansis, but can enter the physical world by manifesting as music and take possession of a willing or semi-willing mortal who hears and loves that music, like Isabella. Isabella records her dreams of the High Mansis, where she is accorded the Duendrazon status and titles. In return, the Duendrazon enjoys what it calls a caesura, a welcome oblivion. Our mostly blessing is that we may never cease, except in caesurae. There is something more that Isabella refers to as the caesura magna, but she laments that her Duendrazon will not tell her exactly what that might be. So again, we took this one because we know we can't get a cheerful ditty from Mrs. Kill, or any character for that matter. The sea does not regret. Isan Fekri, one-time Secretary Salvant of the Curia of the Isle, responsible for the Curia's healing efforts, writes of his experiences in Brandkrug and hints at his travels elsewhere. The sea does not regret the tide, Fekri writes, for when the tide has passed, it leaves its traces on the sand, which traces are the sea's memory. Fekri is a keen fisherman and speaks glowingly of the fish suppers of Brandkrug. He also admits that his enthusiasm for the bounty of the sea has altered him, that before he came to Brandkrug, he consumed only those things found in the earth. I was the greater thereby, but all of us give up what we were to become what we are. Salt, sea spray, depth sorrow. And finally, Glimmerings, an anonymous prison diary written by a dreamer convicted of oniric irresponsibility and confined to the Kukurbet. The prisoner is plainly terrified and bewildered by their situation, and has been unable to wrangle a coherent explanation out of anyone, but the dreams keep coming and they keep writing them down. Snow, broken mirrors, half-heard sky music, flowers of white, red, and black, a blood-streaked winter dawn, the most notorious signifiers of oniric risk, fantastically vivid and detailed. No wonder they were locked up. Their final recorded dream is of a worm jewel beneath Brandkrug Isle, which they open with a key carved from their finger bone. Bittersweet certainty, eventually the sun in rags always brings its beautiful ending. Okay, so we've got sort of the raw material we'll be using for the day. Let's start by reading Nin's Cages. So we're a little bit behind in terms of making the most of Nin's Cages today, but I think we can still see it through. In this case here, we will use Ericapan. So under skill, we will use Quenchings and Quellings. For memory, we'll use Weaving the World. We'll also renew that memory. Or actually, maybe we'll just see if we can get the one with... we'll see if we can find the other heart while we're at it. And then, so we're at 14 of the 16 we require. So I suppose one other option I do have... I know I made some inexpensive inks as replacements. Oh, did I not put ink in this room? Oh, there it is. Okay, that was Ugal. I thought I had a parabate sitting around here somewhere. Yeah, you know what? I'll use this, and then we can redo it. All right, I can master this mystery. Enough heart to match mystery heart. So while we're doing that, let's start by reading the other text. So the sky and the scar, gnomic exhortations that might be described as emergency procedures for the return of the traveling kinds of Carapace Cross. So that requires Sabazine. There's a history where Alexander defeated the Great Knot of Sabazos and then the King of Kings. There is another history where instead he learnt from them. How many more? If we curl our hands into the correct shapes, we may yet understand. I've already mastered this, but I could reread it and perhaps recall a memory. All right. So some of the basics are down now. I do want to make that parabate again. I think that's an Ink of Power. Although I have to use that at the dispensary if I want. Oh, not even the dispensary. I guess the Nocturnary then. Nope. I should stop guessing and actually think about what I'm doing. So I do have the option of using this at one of the altars. I'm just trying to remember if this is the correct one or not. Yes, with sufficient scale we can make parabate. Now I'll skip over that. I'll use Faust instead. So I can brew a minor Ink of Power, a binding ink. And the whist is actually a little more useful to me, so I'm going to switch out the shaft for my moneymaker. Okay, so Mrs. Kill did wind up replacing the Satisfaction. That's life, you know, you can't always plan it out. Now, however many items we get from Nin's cages, we are going to be leveling up, well, a level 7 item, so I need 7 memories to work with. I will have 5, 6 to start with. And if we're lucky, we'll get a special one out of reading the book, but if not, you know, it's not that hard for us to get a replacement. There's the last one I need, regret. There it is and can be no tizzer. Mrs. Kill, as every local gossip knows, came from France to marry Mr. Kill, but there's scant trace of the continent in her accent now. And sorry, I've been sipping some tea. It's quite late, so I wanted to pick me up. I also figure it's, I don't know, if you're gonna play a Weather Factory game with a warm beverage, it's pretty much got to be Book of Hours, I feel. Okay, so we're going to use the shaft instead. There's not much work on offer in Brandkrug, but I can find 6 pence worth of odd jobs. And again, I mostly do this just because I don't feel... I don't really feel like I need to... I don't need to use every element of the soul right now. Generally, if I do feel that need, I try to alternate it so that I have a restored element of the soul in time. And in particular, if I feel like it's kind of all hands on deck in terms of generating memories, I actually stop the rotations early, and then I just use all of that money to restore all of the elements of the soul. But even though I haven't committed a whole bunch of skills, I really haven't run into a lot of situations where my day has sort of been halted by the lack of elements of the soul. Not to say it's never, happened, but it's not. It's usually not a showstopper. Okay, the sky and the scar. Gnomic exhortations that might be described as emergency procedures for the return of the traveling kinds of Carapace Cross. Each page of this book, except the last, bears a single sign, clear and irrefutable as a gem. The final page is empty. The traveling kinds of Carapace Cross might never return. Newman, back into balance. When the traveling carapace kinds passed beyond the wave and the sky, they made arrangements for their return. There are histories where those arrangements might be invoked. Okay. Some authorities claim it's difficult to lose a pot of parabate ink, but they haven't lived at Hush House. I feel like that's a bit of a nod to the fact that it is easy to lose items inside here. Parabate, which binds to which binds to the one whose name is there written, a minor ink of power. So, ideally, I replace as I go. So we're good for the memories, and with that in mind, I actually have a surplus. So we'll use the core to level it up, I think. But that means that I've got an Arab, a health, and a whist to go with for the day. So maybe a walk on the moor. We'll use the Arab to restore the Newman for the next day. And maybe we'll do some gardening. I guess the alternative too would be the whist is used for the book, and then it's the core and the health where the gardening's done. Maybe we'll do it that way. But we still have time in the day. I'm not quite ready to wrap all my elements of the soul. 45 seconds. So yeah, we'll have a pretty good idea by the end of the day what we're up against. One thing is clear to me, though. I don't really see a situation where we're able to level up quenchings and quellings all the way today, so I'll probably do some gardening. In spring, we've got moth orchids. Those are helpful. Yeah, I actually think we'll focus on this part of the garden. Again, just waiting for some assurances before I lock everything in. Nin's Cages, the merciful measures of the witch Nin, Avignon text. We'll read that in a minute. I actually probably should. We should be good. I wanted to try and get a head start on it, but... Okay, the merciful measures of the witch Nin. Nin's stated aim was to keep beyond the walls of sleep that business which should not trouble the world. This includes fever, madness, and delirium, as well as spirits identified as devourers and deceivers. Nin warns against cutting hair, cracking mirrors, spilling blood, or invoking the edicts liminal or inviolable before sleep, for no matter how secure a lock may be, its key will surely open it. So I believe that may be related to what gave us the 3 and the 3, which we've not yet read. But let's see what we got out of it. So a hindsight, I'll make sure that I add that to my list. 3 quenchings and quellings. Alright, another Overflow book. So this will be the new intuition shelf. Oh. No good. Well, that complicates it, doesn't it? Just to keep things moving along, we'll make a special hindsight shelf for another part of the library. I realize any librarians are now screaming at me from the screen, from the audience, but I'm constrained. All right. Let's get quenchings and quellings leveled up as quickly as we can. So we definitely want to use the Gale. That's going to be something that goes away on its own. And as a reminder to myself, in the Violet Chamber, we've got Grail, Knock, Moth, and Heart. So we can basically keep any of the... we can keep half of the things that we find necessary. So Hindsight, Regret, those are the sorts of things that I want to put into the formula first. Although, again, I'm not short on memories, so I can get a little flexible. Okay, so Salt, Bittersweet Certainty, Hindsight, Regret, Quenchings, Quellings. So 3 more memories to deal with. Gale, definitely. So 2 more Satisfaction. And I think I'll do Back into Balance. At last, I approach mastery. Okay. So with the day's work, I think what I'm going to do here is... So the Cheerful Ditty will be the thing that I preserve overnight, and I'm going to get the Newman now, especially because the Arab isn't really going to be able to get me anything else. So I've already mastered this, but I could reread it and perhaps recall a memory. From that, we've got a core and a health to play around with. And again, I'm definitely not going to wind up with 8 new memories. So at this point, I think we do sort of what we expected we were going to do, and that's some gardening. Gather in spring, pluck the petals of the Lenten rose, and then some Moth Orchid here. Moth Orchid I feel like we've used a bit more than the others, just because of the ingredient, the candle making, for instance. Moth Orchid is soft and velvet to the touch, except when it changes. And I think that's going to be where I leave it here. We clearly have more to do, but I figure we can talk with Wakefield and handle all the other handle all the other matters in the next broadcast. I think it's pretty clear what the next few steps are going to be. So, excuse me, it won't be that hard to get the 8 memories required for quenchings and quellings. What might be more interesting is, one, what I put those points towards... excuse me. What I put the points towards on the follow-up, and then whether or not I want to take a shot at each flame his fuel in the next day. Of course, one of the things that'll change that will be whether or not we can work with these submerged sea caves. I actually think we might get lucky and have this done so that we get the metal back in the next day. But anyways, all of this will be taken care of in the next episode. So thank you very much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.